Today we're doing 3 fall DIYs. For this first one, you will need at least one book. I like to use books that are bound for the garbage or are in very bad shape, or the information in them maybe is outdated and useless. Sometimes books that are about software, different technology, different subjects. Some books, the information in them can get outdated and the book isn't useful anymore. So I'm just drawing a shape that I think will work to be half of the pumpkin. I ended up using 2 books of the same size. And you will just use your X-Acto knife and bending open the book to expose the backing, and then taking your X-Acto knife and cutting your book into sections. The sizes of your sections will depend on how good your scissors are. If you don't have very good scissors, like the pair I'm using here, you're going to want your sections to be pretty thin. This is my first time making a book page pumpkin. You can find all kinds of these online, different tutorials, but I really wanted one. I think they're very pretty, and so I thought I would try my hand at it. So once you get one section cut out, you'll just use that as a template to cut out the same shape on every section of both of your books. And now the more books you use, the more full your pumpkin will be. And if you're using a fairly large book, you might only need one book. But I ended up using 2 and I like the way it turned out. Once you get them all cut out, you will just glue them together, and I'm using hot glue. The construction of the book is a little bit wobbly. It's not the most sturdy thing in the world, but once we glue the stem in, that will add some stability. And then if you wanted to, you could add a bottom to your book and just trace around the bottom of your pumpkin, and either use paper or fabric, maybe felt, something as a bottom to add more stability to the whole thing. Once you have all of the sections glued together, you will just wrap wrap it around itself to glue the front to the back. This part is completely optional, but I'm going to take some of this spiced carrot color by Apple Barrel and a little bit of burnt umber to darken it up. I'm going to mix them together, and I'm just going to paint the edges of the book to add a little bit of color to the project. I've seen some people actually take the whole pumpkin outside and give it a coat of spray paint. Or you could not paint it at all. I think it looks great any of those ways. You're not going to want to be too heavy-handed if you're hand painting the edges of the pages because the globs of paint will act as glue and will glue your pages together, and we don't want that. I know that the Dollar Tree sells books and also sells, you sometimes can find some stems for sale at the Dollar Tree. I just got this one from my yard, and I'm just going to generously use hot glue and stick the stem down in the center of our pumpkin. And then after you get it in there, I would go back and add more hot glue in the empty spaces. Now, really the most important part of this project is fluffing the pumpkin, which is just opening every page and spreading all the pages out. I'm using some of this wire jute from Dollar Tree to create a twig to stick down next to our stem. This wire jute is bad about coming unraveled. The jute twine just comes off the wire very easily. So you could use some tape on the end, or I think what I'm going to do is just apply some Mod Podge to the entire roll of wire jute. That way I don't have to worry about it from now on. But a little bit of tape on the end will keep it from coming apart as badly. This pumpkin turned out a lot larger than I thought it was going to because the book seemed pretty small. So if you used a large book, you could make a very large pumpkin and it would really be a statement piece. I really love how this turned out. And it was very easy, so a big effect for not a whole lot of effort. For this next project, you'll need 2 of these luau skirts from the Dollar Tree. You'll also need an oatmeal canister, and if you don't have one, you could use a few paper towel cardboard tubes and glue them together to create roughly the same size as the oatmeal canister. And you'll also need a plunger from the Dollar Tree. I wanted to show this quick tip, what I do for very stubborn stickers. The sticker on this plunger handle was very tough to get off. It was very stuck on there. So I just boil some water and then put the lid on, and the steam that comes out of the steam release hole on the lid, um, it kind of directs the steam to where you can steam labels to get them off. I'm gluing the lid onto the oatmeal canister, the lid that came with it, just to give it more stability. I'm leaving the raffia on the luau skirt, and we're just going to glue the whole thing around the oatmeal canister. Now I cut the bottom half of this luau skirt off, making it shorter so it was easier to work with. So you could possibly get by with using just one luau skirt, but it would be more time consuming. I used 2 because I wanted to be able to just wrap it around because we're doing this process twice. So I just wanted, just to make it easier on me, I just used 2 separate luau skirts. I hope that makes sense. Essentially, I cut this luau skirt in half, so I have 2 halves that I could use to do my 2 different layers of raffia on our broom. But the second half is loose raffia, and you would have to glue each individual strand of raffia onto the broom, which would be very time consuming. This step is optional if you like the color of the raffia. You do not have to try to stain it at all, but I just felt like it was too clean looking. I'm going for more of a grungy, sort of primitive broom that looks old and used. So I just watered down some Burnt Umber by Apple Barrel, and I'm just going to paint it on and then wait for it to dry. With my water to paint ratio, this bottom layer of the broom that we're working on right now, it turned out too dark for my liking, but I learned that lesson on the underneath of it. So for the next layer of raffia, for the next skirt that we put on, um, I will be watering down the paint some more because this looks a little too dirty. I'm just going to hot glue the oatmeal canister to the plunger. I feel like I've been buying so many of these plungers lately, and it seems like every time I go to Dollar Tree, it's the same cashier. I don't even know what she thinks about it. I'm going to cut this skirt in half as well, just to make it more manageable while I'm doing the craft. And I'll be using all this extra loose raffia for other projects. Now it's time to glue the top layer of raffia to our broom, and you can see that I'm starting a little low on the plunger. That way I can kind of climb up it as I'm wrapping the skirt around the bottom of the plunger. This is a shorter decorative broom for fall decor. You could certainly find a longer dowel at your hardware store, and you could probably find one that would fit down into the head of this plunger so that you can have a more life-size, full-size, full height broom. But I really like how this turned out, and as a decor piece, it's really cute. I didn't like how the lip of this plunger was sticking out. You could see it was creating this sharp sort of edge that you could see the shape of through the raffia. So I'm just going to trim away this lip, going all the way around, being careful not to cut my raffia. So you'll definitely want to do this before you get into the project. After I watered down the paint a little bit more, I then applied it to the top layer of our broom, and I made sure to be a little more careful to get all the pieces because this top layer is going to show much more than the bottom layer will. After I got it all painted, I set it on top of a wide mouth mason jar so that the pieces of raffia would hang straight down. I smoothed them out and then let them dry. You can trim up your raffia in whichever way you think looks good. You could cut it all the same length or do different jagged lengths of raffia. I think either would look good. Tying two pieces of jute string around this broom will make a big difference in the look of it. Some of these decor brooms that you find for fall, some of them have more of a fluffy looking bottom on them, and some have more of a stiff, slicked down look. If you don't like the fluffiness, I didn't mind it, but if you don't like it, you could definitely use Mod Podge to stiffen up these bristles, this raffia, to give it a harder, stiffer look. The handle of the plunger looked way too clean and new, so I just decided to take that same watered down paint and give it a coat. It goes on pretty dark, but don't worry, it will dry a lot lighter, and just give it an aged look. Now I do not mind being able to see the bottom of that oatmeal canister when you lift it up, but if that does bother you, you could take some of the scrap raffia that you've trimmed off, fold it in half, and glue it up underneath on the entire bottom. And that would cover that up and make it look a lot better if you're afraid that people will be picking this up and looking at it. This piece of twine that was on that luau skirt left over, instead of cutting it off, I just decided to wrap it around the handle of the broom, gluing it with hot glue. I just love this little broom. I think it's a great fall decor piece, and I just wish I had some pumpkins to put in the pictures with it, but I just love how it turned out. This last craft is pretty quick. I just found this jar recently at Dollar Tree, and it's shaped almost just like a pumpkin. So I'm taking some of this spiced carrot paint, and I'm going to add some baking soda to it. And I'm also going to take some Truffle paint, chalk paint by Waverly, and add a little bit in there to darken the color up some. It took 2 coats of the paint to get full coverage. For the lid, I'm just going to wrap it in jute twine using hot glue. And I'm sorry that I'm out of focus here, but you can see that I just started at the top and the very center, started gluing the jute twine, wrapping it around the jar lid. I used a lighter to burn away all of the flyaway fuzz on the twine. And then I just took the same as we did with our book page pumpkin. I took some of that wire jute and made a little twig to glue onto the top and cut out two little leaves out of an existing larger leaf that I had to add a little bit more of an embellishment. Thank you so much for watching today. Thank you to all my subscribers. You guys are great. See y'all next time.